There is a voice that doesn't use words. Watch as well as listen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Quinn-Smythe. Today I am talking about social inclusion and participation. But first off, a bit about my background. I am studying a Masters of Science Research at the University of Technology, Sydney. I am fascinated by animals and I absolutely love being outdoors, in and amongst nature. I am a teaching associate in the environmental sciences subject of biocomplexity. I am fluent in Spanish and currently learning Auslan. I am also profoundly deaf. I was diagnosed when I was 15 months old and received my cochlear implant at the age of 2. What exactly does social inclusion and participation entail? It means enabling people to grasp opportunities, break down barriers, and achieve greater involvement. I see social inclusion and participation as particularly important. My cochlear implant has enabled me to access the hearing world in ways that were not possible in the previous generation. One of my proudest achievements to date is living overseas in Pamplona, Spain for a year. I studied in a Spanish-speaking university and had a brilliant time travelling independently to 22 countries across Europe and Asia. This experience, where I was participating in Spanish society, has rewarded me immensely by giving me a newfound independence, confidence, and a thirst for language learning and travel. I believe it is really important for all people to be active participants in their society. I have grown up acutely aware of the impacts of disability on education, social inclusion, and opportunity. A lived experience of deafness, as well as being the younger sister to Tim, a young man with Down syndrome, has allowed me an insight into some of the challenges people face. Being deaf, I've had my own share of challenges. Loud, noisy situations are difficult and involve lots of lip reading. Talking on the phone with background noise is almost impossible. Until recently, swimming carnivals were a world of silence, a person needing to tap me so I knew when the race had started. My year in Pamplona was a mighty challenge in itself. I had to have a year's worth of batteries in my bag. I had to know where all the implant centres were in case I needed repairs. When I was travelling alone, I needed my strobe smoke alarm to keep me safe. Whilst deafness is not impossible, it does bring with it an extra set of challenges and considerations. When I was younger, I struggled with my deaf identity and being the only deaf person in my school. Lots of questions were asked. As I've grown older, I've come to love deafness, and I see it as an integral part of who I am. Despite the challenges associated with being deaf, I have not let my deafness stop me. I've also had my own share of secret pleasures. My ability to switch off and not hear anything proved invaluable in those noisy youth hostels, rooms with lots of snorers when travelling overseas. In the past, deafness was a great barrier to social inclusion and participation. People were separated from society, sent to schools for the deaf, and only able to communicate with other Auslan users or via interpreters. Technologies have enabled deaf people to access the world on a greater scale than before. And yet, the statistics show we still have a long way to go. Deaf children are at greater risk of developing mental health difficulties than their hearing peers because of the isolation they may experience. Employment opportunities for deaf and hearing impaired people are significantly less than for hearing applicants. A first-hand experience of deafness and a love of teaching science has led me towards fascinating research in the gaps of Auslan in the scientific world. Through my research, it has become particularly apparent that we still have a long way to go in allowing all to be included as active participants. My research has found that there are many gaps in Auslan. Auslan, that's Australian Sign Language, uses combinations of different hand shapes to represent words. Words that do not have a sign are finger-spelled. Science, and indeed any disciplines that involve lots of jargon or technical terms, have a lack of Auslan science. Words which I take for granted and come across almost daily in my scientific work have to be finger-spelled. I am not talking about technical words like cornucopia and fallacy, but common environmental-related words such as ecology, biodiversity, climate change. Can you imagine having a conversation where each letter had to be spelled out when there was no sign for that word? CLIMATECHANGE is REAL. Deaf students frequently enter tertiary study and workplaces relatively unprepared for success in the areas of science, maths, and reading. Whilst not everyone who is deaf wants to go into the sciences as a career, I believe in this current time of significant environmental change, it is incredibly important for all people to take part in those vital conversations about climate change, including those who are deaf. I hope one day to be able to work with native Auslan users to bridge the gap between Auslan and science, and be involved in the creation of new signs for scientific words, enabling greater inclusion and participation. A cochlear implant is fabulous technology, but it is not on its own a magic wand. To be useful for those deaf from childhood, implants must be paired with effective and intensive early intervention. Children do not learn functional listening skills by simply having the implant surgery and being switched on. In order for me to learn to listen and speak, I attended 3 sessions a week from when I was diagnosed to when I started school. Throughout my schooling years, I had additional specialist support. This was vital for learning new concepts and vocabulary. Even today, I still rely on regular mapping sessions to maintain my implant function, allowing me to participate in the hearing world. In the future, I hope to achieve my career goals of becoming an academic in the environmental sciences. I hope to work with Auslan users to expand their scientific vocabulary. I hope to have a family of my own. My concerns for my future are in having the technology and the specialist support to continue achieving my goals in each phase of my life. So what can the government do to assure mine and other deaf people's futures? Make hearing a national health priority. Be aware of different accessibility issues. For example, make correct captions the default in all videos. Adequately fund the NDIS so that the technology and support that deaf people need is secured. Increase opportunities for deaf and hard of hearing people, particularly in education and employment. Approximately 500 babies are born with hearing loss in Australia each year. This number is only growing, making it even more important to ensure the deaf voice is heard. Everyone has a voice, and it's important that they are given the vocabulary, the means, and the opportunity to contribute just like any other citizen. Make mine and other deaf people's voices be heard. Remember that not all voices use words. Watch as well as listen. Thank you.